Well, here we are, 22 days into 2021, and I know that I'm a little bit late, but I wanted to talk about the numerology of the year and how it relates to tarot. So if you take 2021, 2021, and you add up all the numbers, that gives you 5. And 5 is represented in tarot by the Hierophant. Now, the Hierophant is one of those more challenging cards in the tarot deck, mostly because he deals with things that are very structured and very traditional. And every now and again, as we go through life, I think everybody doesn't like that structure and tradition and authority, and we always try to find ways to invoke freedom instead. We want freedom in the ways that we believe, in the way that we worship. That has been a tradition in our own country here in the United States of America for a very long time. So there are some really good things that I just sort of hinted to about tradition, but I want to go back a little bit in the story and tell you about how we got here. Last year, the year 2020, was represented by the Emperor, and the Emperor's story, when the Fool, who is the main character in tarot, first meets the Emperor teaches him how to rule justly. So the Emperor is somebody who really likes rules, but who is also open and understanding to the people that he serves. So there is some challenging aspects to the Emperor, especially if somebody who is on the throne who is more toxic or unwilling to bend to the whims of others, somebody who doesn't put other people above themselves. That's when we start to get a very toxic ruler, right? And so the Emperor is actually a warning of all of those, as well as instructions on how to be a good father, a good leader, a good warrior, right? And the Fool actually does learn from him and implements his teachings in a way that turns out quite horrible for him, in that he becomes very successful. And what I mean by that is that because of the Fool's success, he finds that there are enemies that start to creep up from other lands, people who want to conquer him and to get what he has, people who want to hold him down and don't want him to succeed, people who don't want him to lead in such a powerful, strong, and thoughtful way. And so the Fool then becomes afraid. And he's not afraid that he can't lead his company or his country or his kingdom, right? He becomes afraid because he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And he doesn't know what to do. And he doesn't know how to overcome this fear. It's the fear itself that he struggles with, not necessarily the possible reactions or results that could occur because of that fear. And so he does what we all do when we find those really hard questions and don't have answers, and that is that he turns to tradition. He finds the Hierophant ready to teach him at this point. And the question that he asks the Hierophant isn't about his own personal salvation. It isn't about God. It isn't about the bigger questions in life. It is simply, how do I overcome fear? And the Hierophant gives him 2 keys, 2 lessons that are represented here at his feet to overcoming fear. And the first one is that we should think about the worst possible outcome, the thing that we're most afraid of. What if it were to happen, right? And a lot of times when we start to think that way, it can be a little overwhelming, but then we start to realize that maybe the possibility of this fear being realized isn't as bad as we thought, or isn't as likely to happen as we thought. Let me give you an example. What if I'm really afraid that I'm going to lose my job? Well, the fact of the matter is, I'm not really afraid that I'll lose my job because I know that I'll have another one. I think I can find another one. And so therefore it's more about the inconvenience and the possible less money. And so that leads to my security. And so what I'm really afraid of is losing security, not my job, right? And then that's something that maybe I could actually do something about. Maybe I could find other ways to be more secure. I could save more money, that sort of thing. And so that's the second step after you really think those fears to the end conclusion. The second step is to then confront them, right? And to do something about the ones that we really can do something about. And those that are imaginary will tend to fall away somewhere in between those two steps. And so the fool learns how to overcome fear, and he does so in a very interesting way. He follows the structure and the tradition that was taught in how to overcome fear. And any time that we have questions that we don't have answers to, that there's no structure that we haven't created for ourselves, we tend to fall back to tradition. In our spiritual practices, right, we will take some ceremony or some tradition and use it until we get our feet underneath us, and until Spirit gives us something that's uniquely ours, right, a tradition. But even that, as I was just kind of minced my words there, even those things that Spirit then gives us that are unique to us become traditions, right? We teach them to others. We use these ceremonial ways that are respected and honored and timeless over and over and over again. And whenever we don't know where to start, we start there with the tradition, with the ceremonies that we already know work. I think that is a really beautiful lesson, that the traditions that we need to look to aren't the ones that don't work, but the ones that do. And that those traditions are also represented by the Hierophant. And that we can bring that energy into our lives and use it to climb out of this place of darkness and fear, because there's already an established pattern for how it's supposed to work. And we can use that while we continue to grow.